Hi everyone, we are again with you to talk about some good races that we have in this past month in October and the beginning of November. And joining me again, Phil Smith, the man behind the British Horse Racing Authority for so long, and also the Argentinian handicapper Nahuel Mazzeo. And we are going to talk about three races: Champion Stakes, Breeders' Cup Classic, and the Gran Premio Latinoamericano, which was in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil this year. So, Phil, Nahuel, welcome again.
Well, thanks very much, Ricardo, and great to see you again. And pleased that we're meeting up. We've got, I think, three really interesting races. And what I think is interesting about these races is that two of them we pretty much agree. We don't often agree, but how fantastic it is that two of the races this month we're agreeing on, and we're only one different on the other race. So it is quite interesting. So what might be interesting is to sort of hear our different reasons about how we got to those figures. So that's what I'm looking forward to seeing. Nahuel, on to you.
Okay, well, hello, nice to be part of this again. And well, I think that it will be great to be here and discuss the three races that Ricardo mentioned. So I'm ready to start.
Okay. Right. So fascinating. Can we screen share, Ricardo, with the first race, with the Champion Stakes race? Very, very interesting race, right? And I was amazed when we all came up with the same figures. So let me first of all tell you the sort of problems that I felt I was facing when I started this race. Well, first of all, the top-rated horse going into the race was Ombudsman, and he didn't win, but Calandagan did win. Calandagan going into the race was only 125, whereas Ombudsman was 128. So that created a problem for us straight away. What do we do with that? Is it that Calandagan has improved? Is it that Ombudsman has underperformed in that race? Or is it a bit of both? And I would have been tempted at first to have Ombudsman on 128, and I think we've all got 4 or 5 difference between him, and that would have taken Calandagan to 132. So I was not so keen on that, especially because of the effect it would have on the third horse. So the third horse for me is a problem in this race because he's only 117, but he is quite lightly raced. And he is only coming to the end of his 4-year-old career. But I'm not normally enthusiastic about a horse who finishes 3rd or 4th who goes up by 5. I'm normally a little bit wary of that. So these were the sort of the things that were going through my mind. Do I make Calandagan 132? With Ombudsman being 128, but that would mean that Almacan would have to be 125, but it would be a better fit for all of the horses in behind. So these were all of the different thoughts that I was going through. Ricardo, what sort of thoughts were going through your mind?
Yeah, first of all, I need to consider that I didn't have Ombudsman at 128 level before, because that Beer Castle race was so strange, and a horse in a grade 1 like leading by more than, I think, 20 lengths, and he managed to be like third. So at my level, Ombudsman was 126. Okay. So I build my rating based on Ombudsman being a 126.
Right.
And that's why I had only 4 pounds between first and second, because I thought Calendahan going 131 was too much. And I think the third horse did not participate. Honestly, it was a race between Calendahan and Ombudsman. That's why I make the difference between second and third 4 pounds, and between first and second 4 pounds. Maybe I should go Calendahan 131, but I thought it was too much. So, but in my opinion, I still have Ombudsman 126. It's been like the last 3 races of this horse. I have 126. Most of the handicappers they use that brilliant win of that race. They rise to 128 at that time, and I saw no reason.
That's the race at York, Ricardo. Yeah,
exactly. And I saw no reasons to go up with that horse that day, and that's why I kept him 126, waiting for the next race, exactly the champions. And then what happened? He was defeated by Calendar. Then I stuck with the 126, and I built my ratings based on this.
So all the guys around the world, of course, I think after the York race, apart from you, had him on 128. So when the Champion Stakes is run, you start to think to yourself, well, I was right, and all these other guys, they were too high. And I've felt exactly the same in races in the past, and that's our professional pride, isn't it? I think coming out.
Exactly. It's it wasn't the end of the year, so I remember that we discussed this through email because we had those monthly publications, and I said, look, I don't see any reasons to rise this horse now based on this race, which was a race we like the third horse being much better, improving, and he wasn't a 3-year-old or Burkestle. He has so many chances to run in the past, and suddenly he will be dragged by that situation. We had the Japanese rider, the Japanese jockey. Maybe everyone was trying to run behind him, and the jockey, considering he wasn't sure how to do it in that situation, probably the race was not the best race in terms of level. But of course, the final action of the Ombudsman was amazing, was brilliant. Everybody loves the One International. And I understand why people rise him to 128, but I stuck with 126. And in the future, next race, maybe I prove I was right, but that's it.
Nahuel, what was your thinking?
I also have had some doubts about Al Makam to move up 5 5 pounds. The thing was that what was interesting for me was the trip of Al Makam in the race. I have to say that he was third in the whole race behind the leaders, and he managed at the last meters to hold De La Croix to finish in third position. So I think that it was a really very good race for him. So I think that he deserves some credit because of it. So I have doubts about what level he really is, but I think that he showed his own potential in the race, holding De La Croix in the last final meters. And well, I took a first look as a guy. He won the Dollar Group 2 at Longchamp, and then I built from him and get to the number to Calandagan in 130.
And that's exactly the same as what I did. We've all got first look at 117, and of course, if you look at his past performance figures, he was 117 the last time he ran. He was 117 the previous time he ran. So the simple question is, if he's clearly run well again. He's only beaten about 6 lengths, right? He's not as good. We know he's not as good as Ombudsman. We know he's not as good as Calandagan. We know he's not as good as Delacroix. So they've all finished in front of him, right? So, but it seems to me a straightforward decision to say that he's performed to 117 against here. But now let me give you another alternative, because a friend of mine, I was in a bar in our local village a few weeks ago after this race, and I was talking about it, and he said to me, oh, he said, I would have had Calandagan 125 in this race, right? Because if you have Calandagan on 125, then Al-Makam is 117. You knock 5 off both of them, and that's Al-Makam's rating. So it's simple, he says. Calandagan should only be 125. It's what he was before. And you've just in a situation where, for whatever reason, Ombudsman has underperformed in this race. And so has Delacroix. Now, and I'd not thought of that, but it's an interesting view, isn't it? You know, are we being too fast to elevate Calandagan to 130 because it drags Al-Makam up with it? And we've all done it. And pretty much everybody around, all the handicappers around the world have pretty much done exactly the same. But this friend of mine said, "Oh, you're just all way too high," you know, and that really Al-Makam should still be 117. I would be uncomfortable with that, because for me Al-Makam is a improving horse, but I would like to see him do it again. That's the one thing that concerns me. You know, we often talk in Hong Kong, Ricardo, about the deadly phrase, "Is it a one-off?" And how many
Exactly.
times have we said that? It's a one-off. You know, handicappers around the world always want reassurance and confirmation that their decisions are the correct ones. So, you know, I hope, you know, it'll be interesting to see, you know, when the guys go out to Hong Kong at the end of the year and decide on this race, you know, will they have Calandagan on 130? Well, if they have Calandagan on 130, Al-Makam has to be 122, right?
Exactly.
Um,
It came into my mind, you know, to use Almacan as a link,
yeah,
but in my opinion, Ombudsman raced the race that he raced in the judgment. So
yeah,
I kept the same level. I didn't see he underperforming in this race.
okay,
Everybody consider him like 3 pounds below his level.
yep,
I don't.
yep,
I didn't.
yep,
And then it was impossible to not be Karandahan in front of him in the
yep,
classifications. How can I do this? Because if I made Almacan as a link horse, Kalangargan would be 125 and Ombudsman
yeah.
would be 128 or
And he, and,
126
he,
in
and,
my
he, and, he,
opinion.
and he's just beaten him.
Exactly.
And in the
Clearly
end,
beaten.
that's exactly my thinking. You know, I was a little bit uncomfortable having Al-Makam jumping up from 117 to 122. A little bit uncomfortable with that. But the more I thought about it, you know, Calandagan had to be higher than Ombudsman. Had to be.
Yes.
You know,
Exactly.
this is the sort of one of the biggest races in England in the year. Everybody comes to it. You know, it's not as if Ombudsman has run abysmally. He's run pretty well. He just hasn't run
Exactly.
as fast as Calandagan.
And at
Exactly.
least
That's
it
why
was like a clean race with no
Yeah.
problems.
No.
Track was firm also, and the pace
Yeah.
was quite good. So there
Yeah.
were no excuses to say that Dotbushman did not underperform.
Yeah.
his trainer said that the barrier, the wide barrier, wasn't favorable to him that time. But it seems to me like an excuses because it's 10 horses only, so it's not like the Latinoamericano, the Pellegrini with 20 horses or even the Arc. It's a 10 horses field, so not a
And in
big
this
deal.
race, nobody got in any horse's way. No, there were no hard luck stories.
Hmm.
Exactly.
You know, it's interesting that, you know, looking at all of the handicappers, and you know, to put I'm sure everybody knows already, we have a world system that we can look at all the time, and all of the world's handicappers went 130 except for one. So I was reassured by that. I remember putting my figures on and thinking, oh, you know, it'll be interesting to see what everybody does. And everybody has done exactly the same as I did, exactly the same as you did, and you did also, Neil. And we'd love the same, except for one guy, and who went 129. So I don't feel quite as insecure about the level that I did when I was doing it at the time. I had this issue about Al Makam, but if everybody bar one is saying that they're comfortable with it, then I'm comfortable with it as well, I have to say.
Yeah, I think everybody in the final decision they think, well, this horse must be ahead of Ombudsman in the classification.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was the key, yes.
Yeah, I think we all agree with that. But of course, the interesting thing is, if you were lower, right, and you know, the only lower figure than 130 that makes sense is 125. Well, that's a big difference between 130 and 125. You know, to say, okay, you know, I don't think he's 130. Well, what is he? 129. Well, that makes no sense. What is he? 128? That makes no sense. 125 makes sense, right? It makes sense. But I think the key thing is I like the fifth horse, First Look. I like him on 117. I think he's done it twice. He's on his two previous races. He's very consistent. That horse.
Yeah.
We handicappers, we love those consistent horses, don't we? We love them.
Exactly. It's the best thing. Even here in Qatar, when I'm doing this with all the horses, not only the black type races. So
of course,
yes, it's when you find a consistent type, I just put a mark, and I said, "This is my guy."
You pray for the consistency.
Exactly.
I had an interesting race this week in Bahrain where a horse appeared, right, and I'm not sure about that, appeared to improve about 15 or 16 points, and I just thought, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. So in the end, I actually improved him 9 or 10 points, but not. I couldn't make that big improvement because, you know, I thought to myself, how do I? If a colleague, you know, looks on our system and says, where did you get that figure from? You know, I'd find it really difficult. You have to give your reasons. You have to give your justification. And I think in the champion stakes, I think we've come up with the same justification. And why have we come up with the same justification? Because it's the right justification.
Yeah. Look, here in Qatar, my very first week, I had a horse which was 47. And then he won easily, and my figure was 64. And I said, but you know, when fit everything, I said, okay, I'll try 64. Ugh. Then here they run every single week, or you know, it's because the season is not all day long,
because of the climate, yeah.
Exactly. So, and then he was in the next race. Imagine he was 67. Then thanks God. But I kept him at 64, waiting for the next race.
Yeah.
And then he ran again, and he was 67 again. And then I go to 67, happy,
absolutely,
and say that's the level. So it happens sometimes. Sometimes it's
and I think you've made a really important point there, that sometimes the maths tells us one thing and our experience and our brain tells us something else, and you don't always slavishly follow the maths. You use your experience, your expertise to come up with a slightly figure. So the performance figures that we've been talking about here, for me, they are a guide, but they're not a straitjacket.
Exactly.
You know,
here sometimes we have a race rating which is higher than the pulse rating of the horse. You know what I mean? So in situations like this, the maths, the races like this, but you say, and if the trainer call you, you said, look, honestly, I'm waiting for the next race.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's, well,
And as I know, because obviously I work in the Middle East as well, Ricardo, the owners and the trainers always want their horses higher.
yeah, to find
They always
the
want
best
in
races.
in
Yes.
England, when I was working in England, the horses, the owners and the trainers always wanted their horses lower so that they could
Yeah,
get lightweights in handicaps. But in Bahrain, in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, in Dubai, they always want their horses higher. Yeah. There's a
exactly.
slight different thing. Should we move on to the Latinoamericano?
Let's go. I will share now the Latinoamericano for you guys.
So, well, let's start with you, Neil, this time. What you know, tell us your thinking about if we just need it to be slightly different so we can see his figures, Ricardo. He's just off the
Oh,
edge there.
okay. Well, I used Metul as a guide to build this race. I have
Mhm.
him running 113 two times. Um, and also Daktari that had a previous 109, and so two guides to build the race to get to the 116 for Obataye.
Mhm.
And maybe some things to say about the race. First one is that Meshul in the last races was defeated by my way, but I think that Meshul was not running in his level. So
Mhm.
that in this race, I clearly confirmed that Meshul was better. My way is moving him up 1 pound, but I think that went to Brazil, to Rio de Janeiro, to win a race, a tough race with horses from South American countries, and did a great job here also. So I have no problem to move up a little bit. And to be maybe near from Metul because they were like fighting in the last races, so in the last occasion. So
Yeah.
I like to have my way near Metul. Another observation for Sekete Boitiamar. He was in a really similar distance in this race and in the Matthias match line where Obatache won that race also,
Yeah.
and he was like showing his potential again. Obatache, he won and entering this race with really good possibilities, and I think that the difference between that race. Because I have in this race Saiki Teguchi and Mar a little bit above than in the Matthias Marchen line, and the reason was that this horse in the previous race was like settled in the pace, and here he took the lead since the beginning, just to give it up in the last final meters, and I think that he really did a great job. Well, as I said.
Okay.
I
Good.
like
Good.
I like the race, and I think that it was a little bit better from in comparison with the Matthias match line.
Yeah.
And well, two links for the race: Daktari running 109 and Metrol 113. And well,
Okay. And just one question I have for you: Who
yes,
was which horse started favourite in this race? Was it Ethereum?
Yeah,
yes,
the field.
Ethereum is underperforming here.
Yeah.
I think that she was one of the potential winners for the race. I
Yeah.
thought that she was going to be in the first positions, but well, she couldn't.
Yeah.
And well, she is underperforming here.
Yeah.
She retired after this race,
Did
so
Oh,
she?
probably
She
yes,
wasn't. She clearly wasn't at her best, was she, in this race? I think.
exactly.
But she'll. I mean, hopefully she'll get 115 at the end of the year. And I think I
I,
personally think she deserves 115.
yeah, I think so. She was much the best filly here in Brazil, and she was super close in the GP Brazil against males. The jockey that they wasn't lucky enough to find a better gap to enter in the straight, and then in this race she wasn't her, and even so, she was close. She was fifth.
Yeah.
Well, my opinion, Phil, if I can.
Yeah, you go next. Yeah.
Yeah, I had, I think the same, more or less the same what Nahuel said. I think the race was better than the Matthias McLean when Obataye has won. The rider Moreira told me before the race that he was better, the horse was better than when he won. So it's an inside information that I had, that the horses would be better than that day. I had 15 when he won, so in my opinion, he would be like 16 or 17. And another thing, especially based on the Chilean horses, this horse Meju, he always he started and then he is restrained to be last. And my way is the opposite. Is a horse that likes to go in front. He jumps always super fast. And if you notice, the last two or three races between them, there were like five horses. Only five horses, six horses. So small fields to a horse that likes to close. It's not that good. It's much better to my way. So I had in my personal preview of the Latinoamericano, Meju being the main Chilean horse because of the pace and the field size, etc. I thought Meju is going to be in the end running on strongly, and it was exactly what happened. He beat my way that day. So I think Meju improved 1 pound from the last start he had. And Seiki Volchama, he won the selection race to this one in the same big track and distance, and he won easily. And so he was in the peak of his form. So to me, he's running. Of course, it's maybe 112 was too high. Vicente has given this 112, but clearly he's in the peak as he was in the peak of his form. So to me, 111 was totally like a guide for me. Also, Meju, Daktari, and other horses. So I think Obataye deserves to be like 1 pound ahead of his last race. I've tried once to have him in Hong Kong 15. He wasn't approved, but this year I think maybe he can be there. Maybe he's a borderline, but I think he's at least.
But you're gonna submit him at 116, the winner.
Yes.
I totally understand, and you both make a very strong case for your figures. If I try and explain why I'm just one lower, so we're pretty close even with this one, right? Is I used Medjool as my guide. We have him on 112 before the race, so I didn't see any reason why he hadn't performed to 112 here. I think we've all called the margin between the winner and the second, we've all called it 3.
Yeah.
I think that indicating that we thought that the winners won a little bit comfortably.
Easy. Moreira easy.
We thought it. I think everybody thought he'd won it easily. So why did I not go 116? And I'll tell you why. Because both the winner and the second are both 5-year-olds. They've been around a long time, and neither of them are. This is a new figure for them: 116 for the winner, 113 for the second, and neither of them have ever reached that levels before. So I was just a little bit uncomfortable raising 2 5-year-olds I think they must have run in 10 or 12 pattern races in their relative countries, Brazil and Chile. and yet they've never ever been 116 and 113 in any of those races. So it seemed to me 115 and 112, which was their pre-race rating, that fitted really neatly to me. They obviously at least performed to that level, if not to your level, which I totally understand. So I left them on 115 and 112, which was their pre-race rating. And I don't know whether these guys are going to run again. I'd love them to run again. But
O
but
Bataille is going to Pellegrini.
well, that's what I was hoping. Now I'm absolutely open to moving him higher when we see how he gets on in the Pellegrini. You know,
Yeah.
so and that's the great thing about these levels and these ratings. You know, we normally get a chance later in the season to have another look and to compare and see if they can reproduce or see if they can, you know, overperform. Unfortunately, on most horses, underperform. So I'll be fascinated to see how he gets on in the Pellegrini. Who would be the main opposition to him in that race?
Well,
Well,
maybe Nahuel
yes.
knows. I
No,
think
we
the winner
have
of the Jockey Club.
now winner of the Capa de Oro Asiento Final.
Okay.
I don't know if Need You Tonight, that was underperformed, Akai is gonna race there too.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll have also the winner of the Shakai Club, Real Rim.
Yeah.
And I think that, well, Ardiendo, that also recently won the Provincia de Buenos Aires, I think defeating Señor Sandro, that were the second and the third in the Jockey Club. I think
Mhm.
that they will be potential runners there. So I think that it's
Okay.
gonna be like a really good race. I think that also are coming Uruguayan horses and also Chilean horses. So I think that will be like a really good race to see.
So do
Yeah,
you th do you both think that Obatai for Obatai to win the Pellegrini, right? Do you think he'll have to perform better than 116? If you
maybe, but it's not his preferred distance. He prefers 2,000 meters. It's
yeah,
2,400 there.
yeah, yeah.
So,
So that's the
he,
problem.
yes, that's a problem. João Moreira will not be on board because he would be in Hong Kong.
Of course.
So it's
So that's
another.
that's another disadvantage.
Exactly. So, but I think he's going to run well. I don't know. Normally, the Pellegrini, the range is between seven in the recent years, been between 16, 18. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
uh, if he
So
won,
it's gonna be a big ask for Obatai to win that race, then, isn't it? A big ask.
yes, yes, yes.
Anyway, so what I was
Oh,
going to say was, look, I'm not firmly fixed on my 115. If more evidence comes to light before the meeting in Hong Kong where the handicappers will decide, I'll come back to this race and put my figures up by one. So I'm not absolutely completely wedded to it. But what did strike me? Two 5-year-olds, they've never performed to 115 in their lives before, and all of a sudden one of them performs to 116. You know, so I had just a few doubts about that, but I'm open to let's see what happens in the next 4 or 5 weeks, and we can always go back and change. And I think that's the point to make to everybody out there watching. You know, we make a decision 24, 48 hours after the race, but after that, we're always looking back, and we're always looking back when the other horse is the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth. When they run next time, we look back and say, does it still make sense, or was I too low, or more often was I too high? More often we're too high than we're too low, but we are sometimes too low. And I'll look back at this race in a few weeks' time and reassess it. But that's where I am for now. And if I was to be in Hong Kong, the points that I would be making are Obatai 115. He did it last time. I'm more than happy with that 115. He's had lots of goes. He's never been higher, so I don't want him higher now. but I can easily see that he can be.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on to the Breeders' Cup Classic.
Well, I was very lucky to be there. I would really love to get Forever Young higher, but I just can't do it. I absolutely love Forever Young. He's the best international traveller that we've had for years. And it's worth just going through, some of his performances to show how fantastically tough this horse is. But you don't get your rating on toughness. You don't get your rating on consistency. You get it on beating better horses by a certain distance. But looking back through his, he's won this Breeders' Cup Classic. Earlier this year, he was third in the Dubai World Cup. Before that, he was first in the Saudi Cup. I was at that meeting. Before that, he won a Group 1 in Japan. Last year, he was third in this race in the Classic. Before that, he was third in the Kentucky Derby. How many horses from outside America ever get in the first three in the Kentucky Derby? That was a fantastic performance. And before that, he won the UAE Derby in Maidan at the beginning of the year. I mean, you can't get a more likable horse than Forever Young. But we've all got him on 127 and we've all got Calandagan higher. So why have we come with 127? Okay. My reasoning is, right, that Sierra Leone, for me, cannot be higher than 125. He cannot be higher. He's not reached that level all throughout 2025. He's performed to 114, 120, 118, and you can see the figure in brackets there. That was at the end of last year, right, when he performed to that 125. And of course, that particular race, when he did the 125, was last year's Breeders' Cup when he won it. So I'm struggling to get him higher than 125. If he was 125 last year when he won the race, how can he be higher this year, right? Especially because if we wanted Sierra Leone to be higher, it would mean we'd have to take Fierceness up as well, because we've got Fierceness on 123 here. That he would have to be 125. And also the other thing that would have to happen is that journalism would have to go up by a couple as well. Look at the performance figures of journalism this year. 120, 120, 119, 120, 120, 119. You couldn't get a more consistent horse to journalism. So I've got him performing to 120 here. So is Nahuel. Ricardo, you're 119, which he did 3 runs ago. Perfectly understandable. I wanted Forever Young higher, but it would have meant having journalism on 122, and I don't believe it.
Yeah, this race was so interesting, based especially on the Kentucky Derby. Yeah. If you see the Kentucky Derby of the last 2 years, so this year the Kentucky Derby was journalist, Baeza was there, and unfortunately Sovereignty was withdrawing the Breeders' Cup Classic. It's a clash of generations, exactly what they want in a classic race like the Breeders' Cup. And if you remember, the last year's Kentucky Derby was Sierra Leone and Forever Young, those battling and bumping each other in the last few meters. So, and Fierceness was the favorite that day, and he broke badly. He bumped that start, I think, or stumbled, something like this. And then they confirmed, at least, well, Sovereignty is 128. We are saying that Sovereignty would win the Breeders' Cup Classic. Probably, if you imagine the race, you're gonna see the blue silks outside of Sierra Leone and beating Forever Young, running down in the last 50 meters to achieve 128, and then Forever Young 127, Sierra Leone is 125. And look, we are generous. We were generous with Forever Young, giving £2. It was half a length and more 20 meters. Probably Sierra Leone gonna be the winner.
Yep.
So it's exactly what you said, Phil. He deserved more, but it's impossible.
You just can't get him any higher. You can't.
Yes,
you know?
exactly.
So
exactly.
inside me, I feel I'm doing poor old Forever Young a disservice. But my emotion wants him higher, but my common sense and my maths says he has to be 127.
Exactly. It's exactly what I said, because watching the race, I could see Sovereignty, who wasn't there, running them down in the end.
Yeah, me too.
So,
me too.
And confirming the 128. So we must be like realistic with what we thought. It's not a question of merit based on toughness, as you say, courage, being a traveler. It's ratings are not that.
I think that there were three real reasons to have these figures here. And one is that Forever Young was agreed in 127 winning the Saudi Cup.
Yep.
The second one was that Sierra Leone was 125 winning the Breeders' Cup Classic last year. So
Absolutely.
both horses are in the top level, and the other reason, and the last one, is that journalism is running in his level. So it's like impossible
for a handicapper.
Yes.
For a handicapper, it was a frustrating race to do, but it was actually a very easy and straightforward race to do.
Exactly. It's
and a little. Sorry, another thing to add is that I like also the way that Forever Young ran, because he was between the leaders from the beginning to the end to hold Sierra Leone, and then that is maybe a reason that, or sounds reasonable, to give £2 and one from the winner, because he was on his show like kind of competition from the beginning to the end. So I think that was impressive.
That's a really good point, because normally the winning distance is half a length, and we would normally all call that one, but we've all called it two. For me, he's gone. He's won the race. The race was over pretty quickly. Once he challenged, the race was over in a flash. So he showed me that he was more than just one better than Sierra Leone. For me, he was definitely two better. However, after the race, when we were all talking about it in Del Mar, a common conversation was, what would have happened if the favourite had been in the, who missed the race? What would have happened? Where would he have won? Where would he have finished, etc., etc. So that was the sort of where would Sovereignty have finished in this race? And I think the general view was he would have won it.
Yeah.
Yes,
that's it, guys.
There's our podcast for this month, chaps.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's the last one of this year.
Great to see you guys, and hopefully we'll get plenty of people watching the podcast and enjoying it.